In this video, you'll learn about the most important part of AI business adoption, and it's not the AI. We explore why implementing AI solutions is just 30% of the work. It's changing behaviors, mindsets, and long-standing habits that's actually more effort. We discuss why traditional processes can easily resist change and what companies can do to build that last mile of AI adoption. Let's accelerate your business. Welcome to the AI Accelerator for Business show, brought to you by 0 to 60.ai, where you get the latest strategies, tactics, and information about the business benefits of artificial intelligence. My name is Carl Ye. I'm joined by my co-host Jeff Bradshaw, and today we're talking about the most important thing about business AI adoption, and it's not technology.
Yeah, you know what, Carl? I mean, ingrained routines and mental resistance can derail even the most powerful AI tools. And so true success hinges on mastering change management, which is probably the biggest challenge for most organizations that we meet with.
This show really is about a lot of the experience that we've had over these, past 2 years working with clients and prospects. And one of the most challenging things, and even a couple of our clients today, is that we have these AI solutions, we have these AI processes, tools, but getting people to actually buy in, and even if management has bought in, getting people to actually use them and sustained use is actually an underreported, underrated thing that companies face, because it's something brand new to people, right? Like, people have been doing the exact same process, workflow for years, if not decades. And to ask them to change it, but change it to a completely different style. We're not talking like, oh, we're just changing one CRM for another, one ERP to another. Yeah, it's a little bit of change, but eventually you're going to have to use it. No, it's a completely different way of thinking, and in some ways completely overhauling your behavior. And that's very hard for a lot of people.
Well, and I think the thing that we see is that, everybody's too busy. We're all too busy. There's never enough time. And to me, that's a really valid, but also easy excuse to ignore these tools that are available. And I think that, and I get it. Like, I mean, even me, I find myself, I fall back into old habits where there's AI tools that can help me be more efficient. And yet I just, out of habit, kind of fall back. I think the other thing that we'd like to touch on today too is the fact that, again, and you and I have been talking about this for the past month or so, is that people will try an AI tool and their expectation is it's going to be, do 100% of a certain task. And if it doesn't do 100%, then they think it's a failure, and then they go back to their old routine. Whereas if you think about AI, if you can use a tool that can get you 40% of the way there, 60% of the way there, well, that's better to start at 40 or 60% than to start at zero, but people don't see it that way. So I think it's about education. I also think that it's not the technology that's the challenge, it's the humans that are the weak link in the chain.
I'll give you the example, like one client that we're working with, and they're really keen on it. The person, we spent about, I would say, 2 hours going through this new process, essentially to compare invoices to an invoice statement to invoices, and it's very manual and time consuming. And what we did was, initially they thought, ChatGPT, that's the tool that they're using, doesn't work because we tried it and just doesn't work. I was like, okay. But obviously, and they were paying for the plus plan, but they weren't using reasoning models. They're still using the base 4.0 model. So we used O3, we showed them, and they were like, oh, this is amazing. So we provided the prompt that we're going to use, and hey, I want you to test this with multiple invoices, multiple statements. And then about 3 days later, they're like, Carl, it doesn't work. I'm like, okay, let's jump on a call. And, they started showing me it's not working. The biggest change was like, oh, we're still on 4.0. You use the prompt, but of course it doesn't work. Switch it to O3. And the moment we switched to O3, everything worked again, right? So all the simple example, and that's not to blame the person. That's more like, hey, that's a behavior change that you have to remember. Hey, you got to switch it because different models do different things.
I've made that same mistake. I've gone to do something and I think that I'm using an O3 and using a reasoning model, and I'm like, this is garbage output. And then I look up in the top left-hand corner and I'm using 4.0. So again, it's that change management and kind of understanding where you're there. And I also think too that if we can get people to slow down a little bit, learn a little bit, understand the technology just a little bit, And again, starts from the top down. The pendulum will swing the other way, and you will see those improvements of that 10 to 40% in efficiency. But you got to commit to slowing it down and learning a little bit and figuring out how to use it to be able to get that swing.
And this is where, when we start talking about AI adoption and actually implementation in businesses, this is part of the things that businesses like us have to, and businesses who are looking at AI implementation, they have to be aware that, like, no matter how good the solution is, no matter how amazing it can do, and how many hours of productivity it can give back or efficiency, you've got to make it simple for a lot of the people to use, right? And this O3 to 4.0, that's super simple. That's like a switch. But most people don't, that's not how they think. And AI is so new to many of those people, many of the employees who don't follow the newsletters, who don't follow X, who aren't in that bubble. They're just like, oh, this is ChatGPT, cool. I'm going to use it. I'm going to use it like Google. I'm going to help me create some content. And like you said, Jeff, it doesn't work well. Another example, right? We met with a marketing agency yesterday, and one of their folks was like, "Hey, I was testing out the reporting, and ChatGPT was just garbage, and it was never good." And it's like, "Hey, what were you using?" And it's like, "Are you paying for the plan?" It's like, "Yes." It's like, "What were you using?" "Oh, it's 4.0." It's like, "Oh, you should actually try O3 or O3 Pro because it's significantly better." But even that,
Even with that though, Carl, we asked them what model, and they're like, it was kind of like, what do you mean? Like most people don't even know there's different models. I also think the thing too is that what we see is that fact of the matter is that AI is still in its infancy, and so there are some models that are garbage and they oversell themselves, and I think that turns a lot of people off too, is because it's sold as if it can solve this problem, and then people get into it and go, well, it didn't solve the problem, it's garbage. But well, it's not garbage. Again, it might only get you part of the way there. So I think that's the other thing too, is you got to take a look at, there's some people that aren't early adopters, aren't open-minded. Maybe it's best to hold off on trying AI because it's still a bit of the Wild West. If you need something to work perfect 100% of the time, well, maybe sit back and wait, even though we don't like to see that. But I mean, if you're diving into it, dive into it with an open mind. Understand that it's not going to be perfect 100% of the time. But again, we're confident that if used properly, it can get you further ahead than traditional, as I call it, manual ways of doing things. And I think you saw this too, even in the early days of the internet.
yeah,
Like people would look at websites and you'd have the early adopters and the techies going, "This is amazing." You'd have other people going, "That looks like crap. Like I don't understand it."
yeah.
But eventually it came around and it got more user friendly.
When we talk about how do we address change management when we talk about AI implementation, I think some of the things that we touched on, right, was like fear and trust of the actual tool. Like, either I fear that I may lose my job, or I don't trust it because it didn't work 100%. Unfortunately, user error. It's like, I didn't know that you could do this, and because I didn't know, I thought AI was garbage, or it just didn't work to the way I want it to work. I think part of the successful rollouts we've seen is there has to be a bit of education component to it, right? There has to be, I think that's part of the first parts, is like, have you educated your staff on the basics of AI? Yes, people have used ChatGPT. We're not talking about, hey, do you know about ChatGPT? We're talking about, like, hey, do you use the reasoning models? Do you know that its capability is this? Do you know about the different aspects, the different tools that are out there other than ChatGPT, or automation tools or video that can complement the work you're doing, right? So I think that first part of it is giving those, like, it's not going to be 100%. It's also managing the expectations of what people assume that it can't do, because not to their fault. There's also too much hype on what these tools could potentially do, where it's blowing my mind. It's like, oh, this industry's cooked, this company's cooked, like, all these people are going to lose their jobs. Yeah, there's a fear component to it as well.
Well, that fear component is real. I mean, I guess, sometimes when you take a look at the capability, I mean, I look at my background in the video business. When I take a look at what some of these AI models are creating from a video standpoint, I mean, some of it is still garbage and you get weird images and the text isn't right. But I mean, I see the potential of where it's going and it's only getting better. So fear wise, if you don't understand something, the best way to, defend against it is to resist it. and knock it down. And I don't know. I mean, I think it's, if we can get people thinking of go towards it, it's not going to hurt you to get onto ChatGPT. And a lot of people say, well, I'm too old or I'm not technical. I don't buy that either, because you take a look at some of the most non-technical people in the world have no problem scrolling through social media, you know, sites on their mobile devices. So I think it's just, and I think part of it too is laziness. I hate to say it, but I think people are lazy. They don't want to learn anything new. They just like coming in, clocking in, doing their job, leaving, and not really putting much extra thought into it. Because I know you get a lot of employees, the senior level can say, well, we want to roll out this whole AI integration plan. But if your employees aren't motivated, they're
Yeah.
just going to go, I'll do the minimum I have to just to appease my boss, but I really don't care about this or the output of the company. And that's unfortunate too. You're going to run into that in organizations.
And some of the ways to combat that from a change management perspective is when you have to be able to show, hey, can it help you stop doing this? Is why we always do our discovery, but we always talk about eye roll tasks, mundane tasks, repetitive tasks, because that's what AI is really good at. And also, very few people, and there's some who just that they like the mindlessness of just doing mundane tasks, but there's a lot more people that are like, I can't get to the job I want to do because I have to do this busy work. It's just I have to do it, right? There's no way around it, from reporting to manual checking, and even going back to the invoice comparison I talked about at the beginning. It's mundane, but it's actually pretty complex, and it's very important because if you don't do it, this company could be losing money at the end of the year, like hundreds of thousands, because there's so many invoices that are coming in, they don't know. I think that's showcasing to those people that AI can get rid, or 10 to 40%, where we're talking about, if you had 10 to 40% of your time back, I'm sure you'll get to the things that you want to do or you need to do in your job.
My recommendation for business executives is that you got to understand the whole what's in it for me. And so when you take a look at trying to motivate your employees to use tools like AI to improve the efficiency of the company, well, that's great for the company and it might make their job a little bit easier. But I also encourage executives to say, show people, educate them on AI and how they can use it, even from a personal standpoint, because there's going to be more of a vested interest if somebody can figure out how to create a workout plan, create a Mayo plan, create, what help them write documents, help do family trees, some of those personal elements and the ways that you can use AI tools. If you can get people doing that on their own personal time, they're more likely to be open to doing it at work. Because if they're just told to do it at work, but they don't understand how it can impact them personally, there's going to be less buy-in.
Going from there, I think there's a big miss that many businesses also look at is, what is your company culture? What is the how does your company either accept new technology, accept change? Because I think businesses need to recognize that maybe either some departments are more willing than others, or is your business itself, how does it, like, what's its own culture? And I think that's important to recognize, because AI isn't a switch in an ERP. AI isn't a switch in a CRM, or a quick tool that you let AI kind of, we've done videos on this and we've ranted just how you shouldn't let IT lead your AI implementation and adoption. But you can't just let IT run with it and be like, hey, it's done. And we've seen this. IT's like, check, 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 check. This is check mark. This is check mark. Okay, we're done. Let's move on to something else. Like, no, no, no. AI is like an ongoing thing because of how fast it's moving. What you've implemented will probably change within 3 to 6 months, and completely new features. The analogy we always talk about is like, if you buy a car with AI, there's a new button every single week that they don't tell you unless you look at the manual. But who looks at the manual? To the point where, like, your car could now fly, but you just didn't know because it was just added.
That's so relevant. I just bought a new truck and I've got features on this thing that I'll probably never use. And there's buttons on my dashboard that I don't even know what they do until I press them. And then something happens and it's kind of surprising. It's like, oh, I don't want to do that again. But you're right. And AI is that on steroids. It moves even quicker. So I think it is. And I think the other thing too is, AI is a way of thinking. It's a new way of thinking. And I think if organizations, you talk about culture, if senior management in an organization can not just, like you say, put out a project and tell people to do it, but start to ingrain it in all of their conversations and look for those efficiencies. You, a lot of the times, will recommend to people that they create like an AI committee. So you get a group of employees that meet once a month and talk about what are new developments in the AI space that might impact our operations. Get them excited about it, and constantly talk about it. And even, again, you refer to this in a lot of your presentations, is organizations almost need to start thinking about AI first. How could you redevelop your business, rebuild your business? If you were starting your business today, if it was AI centric, how could you potentially do things differently?
Yeah, and we actually talk about more about that, and I'll leave a link in the description and above here. I guess the last piece in terms of change management too is how do you make these AI systems either, we talk about human in the loop, but how do you make it, I guess, people centric as well? Because part of it too is there's a lot of promise. It's like, hey, we're gonna go into your organization and these AI automations will do this, and it can easily do that. And I think people misunderstand or intentionally ignore the fact that each and every single business has a very unique workflow and process. Could be direct competitors. You go in, completely different processes, with different divisions, different departments, different people. And then from there, how do you ensure that like you're people led? And what, again, we always go back to this fact, you've got to ask, which is why we do the discovery, which you should do the discovery, is ask those people, those frontline teams, like what is actually your workflow and process, understand it, and then connect the AI to it, right? Because the biggest part of change management is, can we showcase to your people, like, can you show your frontline teams, like, hey, AI is going to help them, which we've talked about before. How can we help them? And the only way you'll know it is if you ask them. And that's the thing, is like a lot of businesses don't ask their teams. They buy a tool and be like, hey, you guys use it. Or they don't even buy a tool. They're like, I need you to be efficient in AI. It's like, what does that even mean?
That's bang on. We see it all the time. We do the discovery calls, and you get variants in the room. You get people that have used AI. You get people that have heard about it, have never touched a tool. And even doing those initial presentations and the discovery process, people feel like they're involved in the process, and it's not just management telling them what to do. And we've seen it. We've seen changes where sometimes some of the most skeptical people in the first part of a presentation become some of the biggest champions within an organization, because they feel like they're included and they feel like their voice is being heard and they're not being told what to do. And again, it's bringing them along as opposed to, mandating that they use a certain tool.
Yeah. So three things that your business should ask itself when thinking about AI implementation and thinking about change management. The first one is, which current employee habits or mindset could potentially block AI adoption in your company? How do you ensure that people actually use and trust the AI tools and processes you put in place? And if your team is resisting AI, is it about the technology itself, or is there a different root cause? Could be the fear, could be change, could be clarity, or could be, hey, I'm just too busy. It's another thing that you want me to do. You got to find the deep reasons why there's resistance on it. And it's usually not specifically the AI itself. So you may need to dig a little deeper. Enjoy today's episode? Want to learn how AI can impact your business? Then please subscribe to this channel. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.